What's the conjecture for this album? Do we just like it because we're told to? Well, of course, the answer is no. We don't just like an album because we're told to. In 1967, the Beatles were on top of the world. Could they do any wrong? I doubt it. They'd released so many hit singles and albums that it was insurmountable. But the pressure must have been incredible. So when it came to 1967 and the release, and the making, I should say, of Sgt Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, it must have been, let's bring in the brass. Oh no, let's try woodwind. Oh, let's do some more studio tricks. But I don't know if that was consciously on their mind. I think they were still trying to develop something and move along. It was a momentum. They'd done that, now let's do this kind of thing, which really puts down to the fact that they were super talented. Lennon and McCartney ended up being the absolute powerhouse, and we'll go down the annals of history, here we go, as much as Beethoven, Strauss or Tchaikovsky, albeit a different genre. Big statement, but that's the level of artiste I think we're talking about. Sgt Peppers wasn't just an album banged together. They were really looking for a few hits out of it, which they got, and they really had a sharp turn in their music sound. Been a lot of conjecture as to exactly where the title came from. It actually came from salt and pepper packets on board an aeroplane. Had that company that made those little salt and pepper packets known, they probably would have asked for royalties. What if they're still in business? Should buy shares. Let's talk about influences. What could have possibly influenced Sgt Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, considering that it really did break the mold in terms of albums and what you can do in songs? Well, I can tell you the inspiration was, first up, the Beach Boys' Pet Sounds. Yep. Bands like the Beach Boys and writers like Brian Wilson have a lot to be proud of, because that sound of Pet Sounds is what they loosely base the ideal and where the world of music could go from that point. Another influence which may come as a surprise for this album was Frank Zappa. He was around for that long. He's gone now. When somebody asks, what's your favourite Beatles song? It's kind of like asking, what's your favourite part of the beach? I think from this album, I'm going to say that A Day in the Life... No, I'll say it. I think A Day in the Life, certainly from this album, and in terms of globally, if you put together a list of songs, it's right up there. Interesting tidbit time. Haven't done one of those in a while. If you play A Day in the Life entirely with your dog present, the dog may go nuts. I've actually witnessed that. It must be something in the pitch or the certain note or the key of the orchestra through the middle of it. Don't do it, just take my word for it. To give you an idea what sort of pressure this band was under, think of the amount of music that they'd already written, released, and globally were hits. They'd already toured the world, and they'd really punched out a lot of tunes. They'd already really come to the turning point, the pinnacle. The pressure must have been incredible to put out something new and amazing like this. There was lots of frustrations in the making of this. Ringo Starr refused to sing certain lines of the lyrics with a little help from my friends, and but they sorted out in the end. And really, as a whole, I mean, if you change one note or one thing inside this album, it wouldn't be the same. It's what people expect now. It was still 2 years before they did their final rooftop concert, so you'd think that they were getting along a little bit better than what you imagined, but obviously not. There was some friction already starting, and I guess the whole thing had caught up with them by then. Now, if you've never sat down and listened to Sgt Peppers, it's a journey, and take it how you wish and listen to it how you want, but there's a reason why it's considered by many Beatle fans as one of the best records they ever made. For me, I'm more of an early Beatles kind of guy, that Beatlemania thing. You know, Beatles for Sale was the first album I heard. So it's it all comes down to taste, really, and my opinion of this has nothing to do with the fact. And the fact is that Sgt Peppers is one of the finest albums and one of the most important ever made. Well, that's it. Now, don't forget, have children. The reason why is just imagine the whole world being run by your next door neighbour's kids. Yikes. Until next time.